A 16-year-old girl is fighting for her life in a New York hospital after she was hit by a stray bullet while hanging out with friends at a Brooklyn playground after school yesterday. Police say the suspected gunman took off on a bike and is still at large. This comes as Mayor Bill de Blasio sparks outrage over a new plan to get the NYPD focusing on, quote, customer service amid the spike in violent crime. David Lee Miller is following all of this for us. David Lee?
Arthel, when police arrived at a Brooklyn playground Friday afternoon, they found 16-year-old Kyla Sobers on the ground with a gunshot to the head. According to investigators, only minutes earlier, she was talking with a 14-year-old female friend when gunshots rang out. The alleged shooter was reportedly one of 3 boys on bikes who fled the scene. Data compiled by the New York Post shows that so far this year, shootings and stabbings have claimed the lives of at least 21 kids in New York City. That's 3 times the rate of fatalities for not just last year, but pre-COVID 2019. Only hours after Kyla was critically injured, a 16-year-old boy in Brooklyn was struck in the leg by gunfire after he got into an argument at a park. That investigation continues. The shooter is still sought by police. In the most recent 24-hour period, 8 people in the city were shot, and that compares with 2 on the same date last year. And year to date, the numbers of shooting victims is slightly up from a year ago, 1,431 to 1,449. The latest round of violence takes place only a day after New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio came under criticism for saying the NYPD has to improve what he called its customer service. And as part of that plan, greeters will meet members of the public when they arrive at a local precinct. The NYPD's chief of patrol said improving community relations does not distract from reducing shootings.
It takes a whole city to keep this city safe. So I, by no means, because we're focused on the community, we can't focus on, if you think we can't focus simultaneously on gun violence, you're truly mistaken.
New Yorkers will elect a new mayor this fall. The 2 leading candidates, former cop, Democrat Eric Adams, and Guardian Angels founder, Republican Curtis Sliwa, have both made crime a top priority. Arthel.
David Lee Miller, thank you. Eric.
Well, Arthel, as David Lee just told us, there's been a rise in crime in New York City, and it's not unique. The FBI says that murder jumped 30% across our nation in 2020, with homicides happening in places large and small. Mid-sized cities having the largest jump in homicides, roughly 40%, with the Midwest leading the highest per capita percentage jump. And in New York City, the Democratic candidate for mayor, former NYPD captain, and current Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, he blames the court system for contributing to the crime rate by releasing inmates from the city jail, Rikers Island.
People talk about closing the building. I say, let's close the pipeline that feeds the building. 30% of our prisoners in the country, according to one report, are dyslexic. 48% of those inmates have mental health illnesses. They shouldn't be there. 55% have a learning disability. I want to close the building, and I want to close the pipeline that feeds the building.
Well, Fox News has invited Mr. Adams for an interview on Fox News Live multiple times, but so far, no luck. His opponent is here. He just released a crime plan, the Republican candidate who has choice words, by the way, for progressive prosecutors, Curtis Sliwa, founder of the Guardian Angels. So, Curtis, what do you think needs to change?
The whole outlook of these progressive Democrats towards this rising violent crime rate. Eric, Shawn, you aptly pointed out, great front page of the New York Post to point out 21 children killed within 9 months by other children, most of them members of gangs. And the response from Mayor de Blasio, he wants Walmart-style greeters to meet you in a precinct. Maybe they'll have flares there, you know, defund the police, defund prison, Black Lives Matter. How ridiculous. I was out in the projects all night where these shootings occurred. I was trying to sort of get information that might resolve this crime. And young men and young women were coming up to me and saying, Eric, you know, not for nothing, Curtis, but the code of the streets in here is snitches get stitches and end up in ditches. If I say anything, there's nobody downtown in Manhattan who is going to protect me. I'm on my own. And that's what I pledge to all of them, that they will be protected. Confidential informants, there'll be money for information. There needs to be a witness protection program. That's what helped break the back of Italian organized crime, and it can break the back of these many street gangs, which now control the projects, the neighborhoods, and in some instances, the subways and parks.
And it's just not New York, as you know, it's in Chicago. The gang violence just overwhelming. Are you optimistic that that can be, it seems like a big task to try and break that cycle, to get people to trust the police, to get the prosecutors to stop releasing people? The district attorney of Manhattan, Cyrus Vance, said he's not going to have bail for nonviolent crimes and offenses. So how do you deal with that whole thing when it seems to be just getting worse?
Eric, Shawn, they want to shut our prisons because they want these inmates in the streets, which will add to more chaos, more anarchy. I want these prisons to remain open. I want these inmates kept behind bars because they're a danger to society and, more importantly, to the residents who live in the neighborhoods that they're from, the inner city areas, the projects. You know, they talk about how unfair it is to put an inmate who's incorrigible into solitary confinement. Eric, as I go into project after project, how many elderly Black and Hispanic men and women are forced to live in solitary confinement in very small apartments because they can't go outside. They fear lead poison. So the mayor is talking about how everybody needs to get the shot, the vaccine. Okay, but he doesn't talk about all the shots that are taking place in the neighborhoods that give people lead poisoning. There is absolutely no attention to that whatsoever. And as you know, Eric, Shawn, over 42 years, I've made that a priority as founder and leader of the Guardian Angels here and in 13 countries and 130 cities all over the world and all over the United States.
Well, you know, a lot of the progressive would say that they're trying to be more humanitarian, that the jail is the wrong place for some of these people, that their mental health issues, that has to be taken care of, and that putting people behind bars in some cases is just not the proper way to do it.
Well, if you go into the prisons, and I notice all of them talk about walking into these prisons as if they're experts, they've never been locked up. Eric, you remember in my early days, I was arrested by the mayor then, Ed Koch, who was an adversary, although eventually he became a friend, 76 times. I was put through the system. I was locked up with inmates. I have seen it from the inside, and I have seen it from the outside. These men, predominantly men, young adults, middle-aged adults, who use weapons of destruction and wreak major violence in the inner city areas must be held accountable. There has to be consequences, and they've got to be locked up. You can't have a society like AOC wants, where there are no prisons, no police, and the inmates rule. That's the definition of anarchy. And that's not America, land of the free, home of the brave. That's why I formed the Guardian Angels back in 1979. That's why I'm running so hard to be the mayor, so that we will have safe subways, safe streets, safe parks, and most importantly, safe schools. Can you imagine? There is a movement afoot in the city of New York to remove metal detectors and to remove security officers from the schools, where the gangs are now going back, since all of a sudden you can go back to school. So now a gangbanger has a mask. You can barely detect who he is because everyone has to wear masks in school. And they're going to be allowed to carry guns and follow in the cycle of revenge and vengeance that has led to more bloodshed. No, I stand for the people, and I stand for the children of color who have been victimized, not for the children of color who have wreaked havoc on their own community.
I don't know if anyone wants guns in schools. I don't think that Representative Ocasio-Cortez necessarily wants the inmates ruling the streets. But very quickly, finally, you have a crime plan. I mean, let's take a look at the cities. New York is not even near the top of the list. You got St. Louis, Detroit, Baltimore, Memphis, Little Rock, Milwaukee, Rockford, Illinois, and on, Springfield, Indianapolis. Look at this list of cities across the country. What would you advise them, quickly, your plan to try and stop this crime?
Eric, Shawn, as you know, I've had Guardian Angel groups in many of those cities. You must have stop, question, and frisk. The police have to have the handcuffs taken off them and put on the criminal element, especially the gangs. They have to be able to preemptively stop them, take the guns away, and lock them up. And you have to have a gang task force unit that has updated data on not just local gangs, but also alien gangs whose basis is in foreign countries. ICE has an amazing database of gangbangers who are here from Central America, Mexico, the West Indies, the Caribbean, and yet local law enforcement in many places are not permitted to access that database. How crazy is that? We must do this to get control of our streets. We broke the back of organized crime. We should use the same methods to break the back of these street gangs who are terrorizing middle-aged and elderly people and other children in the inner city areas. It is a sin if we don't do that.
We're up against a hard break. That is the message from Curtis Sliwa, who's running for mayor of New York and the founder of the Guardian Angels. Curtis, good to see you.
Thank you. Just go to curtissliwaformayor.com to learn more.